is Elizabeth Benson. She is a Laboratory Information System Manager at Emory, which is where I work. I work with Liz every day, very closely, and she is going to talk to us about the day in the life of an LIS manager. Like many LIS managers, she is a former medical technologist, or still is a medical technologist. She started out in chemistry, then went to special hemostasis, and she's going to give you what it's like to be an LIS manager, and that's pretty much it. All right, so Liz, you're on.
Thanks, Alexis. Oh, I'm normally very loud anyway, so I fear the microphone is going to blast you out. This is my first year at API conference, and I want to thank API for inviting me to speak today. I was wondering how many residents are in the room right now. I think I lost a bunch of you after lunch, which I was afraid of. Do any of you know who your LIS manager is? You all do. That's very good. Are the Emory trainees here?
Yes, one. Just don't point out.
Okay, I'm going to look away. Did you know I was your LIS manager? Okay. I ask that question because I am all over the place in a day. So it's not unusual for the residents not to know who the LIS manager is. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about a day in the life of the LIS manager and the real story, according to me. So my objectives today is to, first of all, outline the daily challenges for technology employees. Healthcare is a very fast-moving industry right now, and the number of projects that many LIS managers have to handle at the same time is daunting. I'd like to, through this talk, demonstrate the skill set necessary to be a successful LIS manager. If you as trainees are interested in going into the field, you most likely will have the opportunity to sit in on an interview with an LIS manager or actually hire them yourself. So it's good to know what qualities are best for an LIS manager. You may be surprised. And most of all, I have a very selfish reason for doing this talk today. As I sat down to do this talk, I was going to talk about project management, actually, and several other topics, and I got on the computer, and I had an especially challenging day. And I said, well, I want to know if anybody else has days like mine. So the reason why I am here today is, are my challenges the same that others face in my same role? First of all, a little bit about me. I'm employed by Emory Healthcare, which is located in Atlanta, Georgia. It is an academic medical healthcare system. It has close to 2,000 licensed beds. There are currently 6 hospitals, over 9,000 employees, and 20 health centers. There are several different laboratories within the system. There are 3 CAP accredited laboratories. The biggest system is Emory Medical Laboratory, which is a CAP system laboratory. In case you don't know, you can, it used to be, it was only Emory Medical Laboratories before the hospital started purchasing other hospitals, and those are the add-on CAP labs. They haven't become a part of the system. But you can register all of your hospital laboratories under the same license. So we have 3 sites that are licensed under Emory Medical Laboratory. One of them is the main campus. That's Emory University Hospital. It's located just down the street from the CDC. There's another hospital that is across town in downtown Atlanta. It is called Emory University Hospital Midtown. And the third site is an orthopedic and spine center that is about 5 miles the other direction of the main campus, Emory University Hospital. EML, which is Emory Medical Laboratory, performs more than 4 million tests annually. And there are many specialty laboratories in EML. They have HLA, they have molecular, flow cytometry, immunology, special chemistry, special coag. Another one of the laboratories is Emory Johns Creek. It's located approximately 30 miles outside of town. And then the third laboratory is St. Joseph Hospital Laboratory, which is located about 10 miles from Emory in a place called Pill Hill. It's up 285, and there's a central location of many hospitals. I think there's 4 hospitals in that group. So you may be wondering how I got to where I am today. I've been a medical technologist for over 30 years. I worked much of those 30 years in chemistry. In 1996, Emory had a reorganization, and I became supervisor of special hemostasis. That doesn't necessarily make me qualified to be the LIS manager. What had happened during those 10 years that I was supervisor in special hemostasis was the LIS team was moved into IS. So it was under IS information system, under their domain, under their supervision. When that happened, the laboratory realized that they were no longer getting their needs met. I don't know, in the room, is anybody supervised by IT or IS? You are, okay. So you know that the laboratory doesn't always get their needs met. The application analysts for laboratory generally get pulled to other IT projects. When the laboratory went over to IS, there was a team of 17 that went over there. When in 1996, there were only 2 that worked on the laboratory application. Many of the projects that involved laboratory were thought of spur of the moment for testing, so they would come back to the laboratory and say, okay, now you have to test this application and we have a week to do it. The item that finally made the perfect storm was physician order entry. So when physician order entry came on board, the project came on board, they realized they needed a lot of lab interface. They needed someone to give requirements, somebody to give definitions, and someone for design. And at that point in time, there was really no one in the laboratory that could act as that interface. At that point in time, the laboratory decided that they would hire the interface. So there was a position that opened up as a LIS liaison. This liaison would integrate with the IS project leads. They would also integrate lab IS projects that contain laboratory data into the laboratory's timelines. And they would also serve as an interpreter, and that's their main function, was to describe the lab needs to IS and vice versa, to translate what IS needed of the lab. My years as being a special hemostasis supervisor, I did a lot of database build. My supervisor was a very good mentor. She kept me involved in a lot of the billing system, so I knew the functioning of the billing system as well as the computer system. It was at this point in time, I had been in special hemostasis for 10 years, so I applied for the job and I got the job. CPOE, which is clinical provider order entry in our environment, which is physician order entry. came about in 2004. It started and was implemented in 2005. I was then pulled into the office and told that the LIS team was coming back to the laboratory. It was going to be under the laboratory supervision, and I would be the supervisor. So that's how I got to where I am today. I am now employed by the laboratory. I have 6 full-time personnel plus myself. We are a totally Cerner Millennium shop, and the laboratory is on PathNet Classic. Remember that mainframe and all of that? That's what we're still on. So it's challenging at times, but he's right, it's stable. For now. Just a little bit about the projects that are going on right now. If we go down to the project right here, implementing PathNet Millennium, May 2013. About a little over a year ago, that was in this position right up here. Almost immediately after we got all of the project together, the charter, the scope, etc., we had the money for it, the hospital decided to purchase another hospital. And its go-live day was August 2012. That hospital had to be converted to, it was a Meditech shop, so it had to be completely converted from network through all of the hospital systems. So all of that was slated for August 2012. In addition to that, about 6 months later, they decided to purchase another hospital. This time they will implement, that's not live yet with their computer system, but they will be going live with all the Emory Healthcare computer systems in March of 2013. Their lab will stay on their current lab system. When you say implementing PathNet Millennium, that is a project that impacts almost every division, from pharmacy to orders to results to power plants. There's hardly anybody in the hospital that isn't impacted by this project. It also has, we now have over 100 MDIs, which are medical device interfaces, which are those instruments that spit out the lab results. We have 6 FSIs, which are foreign system interfaces. Those are your reference lab interfaces, so we interface to most of the major reference labs, as well as us being a reference labs for others in the area. We also have 3 billing systems. We have an outreach billing system, Telcor. We have a clinic billing system, IDX, and we have a hospital billing system, HealthQuest. While all of these projects are now on the slate, we also started getting the meaningful use projects. Meaningful use carries with it financial incentives. And if you have financial incentives, typically what happens is that project will go to number 1. So our projects is a living being. So I thought Dr. Tudhill's talk earlier just segued so nicely into my talk. So our project plan will follow the usual arc. Phase 1 will be unwarranted optimism, as it always is. In Phase 2, the obstructionists will slither out and try to smother our dreams. Ignorance and envy will fuel rumors that they get repeated until morphed into common knowledge. Resources will be allocated based on misinformation and favoritism. Does that ever happen in here? And requirements will drift until the project is both undesirable and impossible. And then that brings us to the second week. So that's kind of our life. It's like you think you have your project, everything's planned out, we're ready to go, looks like a great plan, and then something is always thrown into the mix. So as I was researching this talk, I found a day in the life of an LIS manager. I was having a particularly challenging day. So I wanted to see, Does everybody else have days like mine? So I just labeled it somewhere in IT Utopia because it sounds like a fabulous job, and I would love to work there. From 8 to, this is his schedule, 8 to 8:30, and I didn't change it, I just took out some of his verbiage. 8 to 8:30, I like to get in early so I have a jump on my day. I answer voicemails, do emails, put together a to-do list. Then around 9:30, he goes to a meeting with his director. 10 o'clock, and I love how he goes, programmers don't come in until 10. Anybody see that? In our environment, 10 o'clock is when the programmers come in. It must be a hidden language. And then he meets with each of the project teams. Then at 11, he goes and he follows up with any of his clients or partners. Then he goes to lunch, and he went into a great deal about how he goes to Whole Foods because he believes lunch is a good time to, you know, zen out and kind of refocus. 12:30, he looks at his schedule, schedules meetings. And my best part is 1 to 2:45, he gets to do documentation, researching, reading, and writing. This never happens for me. If I want to do that, it's usually after 6 or on the weekends. 3 o'clock, he gets a break. 3:30, checks some more emails. 4:30 to 5, he preps for the following day, and then he's gone for the day. So I just thought that was just a wonderful little job. But that's not my job. Not my job. So I thought I'd share a day in my life. So I usually leave home around 7:30. I live 5 miles from Emory. It usually takes me 30 minutes to get in because traffic in Atlanta is traffic in Atlanta. If ever anybody has gone through Atlanta, it's not good. So driving to work, I'm hoping I don't have a heavy day. I know that I do have a meeting with the director, and I had plenty of time to plan for it, but since I was out at Johns Creek, outside of town, 30 miles the night before, I didn't get home until 7 o'clock, so I didn't have time to check my calendar. That kind of looks like me. So the one part I didn't tell you about is I have an office at the main campus at Emory, and then I have a second office with all of my folks is located 5 miles away at the Orthopedic and Spine Center. So I am between the two offices. I used to only be at Emory, and the pathologist would stop me routinely. They knew where my office was. They knew I would be there. They could reach me whenever. So this impromptu hallway conference happens a lot now. Whenever somebody's, and it happened to me on the way in to work. So a half hour, the pathologist stops me, and she begins to tell me, doesn't even say hi. Doesn't even say hi. Copath has now given her carpal tunnel because of all of the clicks she has to do. And it's a blow-by-blow description of how she, because there were improvements to her process, they did a lot of PDF archiving. They had their instruments interface, so there are many more clicks in order to get those stored. And then her final words were, "It never used to be like this when I was in Classic PathNet." So in Classic PathNet, of course, you didn't have any of those other features, and you have one blob of text. That's all you have. So quite easy, one click. I do love these hallway conversations, though, because for me right now, it's many times the only interface I have with a pathologist. So I need to hear what they have to say. So 8 to 9 o'clock was my prep time for my meeting with the laboratory director and Dopey, who is Alexis over there. I did not give her the name of Dopey. She gave herself that name. It's the Director of Pathology Informatics. So in the talk, I'll sometimes refer to it as Dopey, most likely not because that's just too irreverent for even me. But I'll most likely say Alexis whenever I refer to her as a director. So because I had the hallway conference, I'm now 30 minutes behind in my schedule. And I have to prepare for the meeting that I'm about to go to. So I start preparing for the meeting at 8:30, And at 8:45, I get a page from the help desk. It turned out that they had put in some new code, they had done some server upgrades, and they had also done an Oracle upgrade, all in the same day. It didn't work out so well, a lesson learned. So PowerChart was freezing. So they were just going to reboot the server. So that would be 15 minutes. So I call Alexis and say, it looks like it's 15-minute reboot. I'm just going to notify the downtime team that it's going to happen. I'm not going to have them go into any downtime procedures. So I called my staff member who's on call, and they sent out the notification. After that, then I prepare for my meeting. Now, I have 15 minutes with the lab director. She is typically, if you don't have something focused for her, she can get off on tangents. Since I only have 15 minutes, I have to be prepared with what I need answered, the question I need answered. What's the issue at hand? She is very visual, and she even says, draw me a picture and make it at 3rd grade level. So typically when I talk to her, it's a little out of focus, isn't it? Or what do you think? I can't read it and I'm way up here. Anyway, I'm going to go over here because I can read this one. So the question at hand for this was a visionary timeline that had been decided upon in January. The laboratories, the core laboratory had to change instrumentation because FDA pulled their reagent for troponins or BMP. I can't remember what it was. It was one of those. So they went to another analyzer. They wanted middleware to do auto-verification because they currently had auto-verification. Remember, this is a high-volume laboratory. I didn't have any staff because of all of those projects. So let's outsource it. Great idea. So unfortunately, with auto-verification, that requires a validation plan from the department, and they have to carry out that validation plan for auto-verification. It's the AP regs. So this department was without a supervisor, down staff members. So this plan, by March, they were supposed to be done, and they were supposed to be going into a WAM interface, which I'll talk about later. We also have 2 instrument interfaces up here kind of hanging out, and then these are future plans. I threw in, we have Johns Creek, which is sapping all of my resources along with St. Joseph Hospital Go Live. So at the meeting, here is where we are. Here's the reality of the situation. It's now May. Still don't have this interface up and running. It's the same resources that need to do the WAM interface. We were told the WAM would take 3 months. All of that, that's hematology auto-verification, that's all department validation once again. In talking with Sysmex, they said it would take at a minimum 6 months. Maybe they could get it in, but most typically it was 9 months. So now we're butting against trying to get this interface, this WAM interface, into PathNet Millennium. So my question to her was, let's not do WAM. So that's what I needed from her. I did it in a presentation like this, so it was clear to her that that wasn't an option. She agreed that that needed to stop. She couldn't commit to that decision up there. I will let you know CenturyLink went live last week. So at the end of the meeting, you'll notice the little cheerleader. That's what that is right there. So the meeting went to 9:30, and then the director had to talk to Alexis and I and said, well, the lab director is leaving. She's been promoted. She'll be up in HR. And it seems that morale is low. So Alexis and Liz, you need to boost morale. I'm counting on you. So there's one more job we have. Cheerleader. Also, here's my little, my 3rd grade teacher. Always helps to have the 3rd grade teacher skills. Okay, 9:30 to 10 o'clock, I was supposed to be traveling over to my office at UWash where my staff members are, but due to that 30-minute delay and then followed up by the extra time with the director, I'm leaving at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, I have a conference call. So I did a great big no-no, and I don't condone this, but as I was driving over to UWash, I was taking the conference call. Remember, please don't do what I say, or don't do what I do. Once I got over to my other location, I got another phone call from the help desk saying, oh, that first reboot didn't work so well, so we're going to try it one more time. Maybe one more time will be the charm. So I had to go back. We had to send out more notices. Notified Alexis once again. So 11:15, I start my meeting with my staff member. So we're in the midst of Millennium, PathNet Millennium go live, and I have resources. I have staff members that are in charge of each of the groups. So one over GenLab, one over Micro, one over Blood Bank. And one of my lead analysts was having personal problems and wanted to be pulled off of the project so she could work out her personal life first before she could deal with what was a really large group of people that she had to organize. So I spent about an hour and a half talking to her, listening to her many times. It's just a matter of listening to your staff members and just the appreciation that you know that she knows that you are listening to what issues she has helps a lot. I really had little to offer her. I couldn't do what she was asking. I have limited resources. So I told her I would help her as much as I could, but I couldn't guarantee what my time would be. We came up with a few other things, and by the next day, she was refocused and a whole lot better. But just another job of being an LIS manager is managing the people, managing your staff members. 12:30 to 1 o'clock, I didn't make it to Whole Foods store. I didn't refocus. I spent the time reading my emails. I get so many emails, especially when on this day, because it was in the midst of implementing that hospital, and every day there was something new. There was some new workflow we had to address. 1 to 1:30, I prepped for a meeting at 2 o'clock. But while I was prepping for the meeting, one of my staff members who was on call came in and said she just got this help ticket from one of the pathologists. I am pathology bashing today. How many pathologists are in here? So I don't mean to, you have certain issues. So this issue was, I left my case open. I was almost done. I wanted a final review, but I had to go out. I had a conference I had to go to. When I came back after the conference, everything I wrote was gone. I don't ever want it to happen again. And he wasn't happy, not happy at all. So I gave him a call and explained the confidentiality policies that are Emory Healthcare wide, and how we can't have open-ended applications, and then suggested, who's on CoPath? The little coffee cup is your option if you want to leave your case open. So 1:30 to 2 o'clock, I went over to the main campus again, and there was an assistant director meeting. I got paged before I could even present what I was going to present. I got paged this time by the CMIO, that's the Chief Medical Informatics Officer. Our EMR, which is Emory's Electronic Medical Record, it looked grim for it. It kept on freezing. Cerner didn't have any sort of reason for it, so they were bringing it down to see if Cerner could fix it, which is never good. So we had to go ahead and send out a downtime page. Lab had to go into downtime. The good thing about being on Classic PathNet, while everybody else is on Millennium, we can still function as we always did. What we do in a downtime for Millennium PathNet is we print paper reports and send them to the emergency rooms in all of the floors. It still is a bit of overhead for us to do that, but not as bad as if everybody was down and we had to go total paper. I then went down and visited the emergency room because they're usually hit worse because they need those results right away. It was a zoo as always, but they were pleased just to get 5 reports back. So I gave them the 5 reports, and then we were in downtime, so they should have gotten reports on a regular basis. So at 3:30, I had some time on my hands because EMER was down. So we have a process for bringing in new lab tests, electronically creating a new lab test. So you would do that, or changing CPT codes, any sort of IT change. And it involves this big form because it has to go to the orders team, and it has to go to the results team, and it has to go to billing, and it has to go to my staff. So once a month I do this task, which is not a fun task or a like task of mine, and I don't think anybody really likes it. So every month we have a meeting with our database analysts, who are subject matter experts. They are bench type staff members that whenever they fill out the form, don't leave a cell blank, because I need something in each one of those fields so you can share information with me. So here's the form this time. If you notice, I'm seeing noticeable blanks. I have the name of the test. I really don't have much of anything else. So I called the staff member, and she goes, "Oh, well, if you had looked further down, you would have seen that I filled it out right here. It must have all been underneath that frozen cell, so I just repeated it right there." Which brings me to my new doctorate I have, which is my doctorate in mind reading. I love the internet. So now it's nearing the end of the day. 5 o'clock, our medical record was back up. There was an all clear. I followed up with all the departments before I left for the day. I headed home at 6 o'clock. I was just sitting down around 7 o'clock to eat, and I get a phone call from the CIO, the Chief Informatics Officer. She tells me there is something seriously wrong. They don't know what it is. They're just going to back out the code. So there would be an emergency downtime at midnight to remove the code. So I contacted Alexis, who was out to dinner. We decided to send out the downtime page. So that's the day in my life. What I want you to get out of it, the most important quality of an LIS manager is to be able to do more than one thing at a time and be very flexible to change. I was sitting, I just threw this slide in because I was sitting in the doctor's office. I had a doctor's appointment, and it was getting later and later. I was getting a little stressed out because I knew I had a meeting in the morning, and I look on the side, and there's those pictures of pain. And I'm like, yeah, that would go really well in my talk. So I've diagrammed my day, and if you're better with bar charts, the bars are there, but if you're good with pictures, you can see what I go through on a daily basis. And usually it does happen somewhat like this for a day for me. I'm real happy when I come in. I usually have, it kind of builds up to being a little stressful. Usually I have more up and down during the day instead of just a cross like that, but I can get back down there quite easily. And at any moment in time, I can be back up there. And usually when I leave, I'm okay. In this instance, I wasn't out of the clear, even though I thought I was out of the clear, because once I got home, I got the page. So I've listed out some qualities of an LIS manager that I discussed right now. Project lead, ergonomics expert, great communicator, morale booster, counselor, diplomat, mind reader, multitasker, stress manager, quick thinker, and innovative. So you may be wondering, why does she have this job? And I personally really like my job. And as I was doing this talk, it was a Saturday, and I was sitting at the computer, and I'd do a slide, and then I'd go over and I'd pet my dog. Oh, my dog's shaking her head. I think I need to clean her ears. Oh, I'll go back and I'll do some of my talk, and then I'm like, oh, let me look online and see if I can find a recipe for dinner. And then, so that's kind of my life. I like to shift and flow through the day. I like constant stimulation. In closing, I'm finally learning how to relax. Unfortunately, relaxation makes me tense. Any questions? If you don't have any questions, we have the fun little survey. Are you ready? You got your cell phones? The LIS manager position is well suited to a person who likes to attend to single tasks, complete it, and move on to the next task. True or false? Okay, we'll move on. DOPI stands for one of the seven dwarfs, Department of Pathology Innovation, Director of Pathology Informatics. Ooh, spoke too soon. It's the Director of Pathology Informatics. What is an MDI? Medical device interface? Most direct interview? Medical damage caused by informatics. Goodness. Project priorities are rarely changed once the project charter is signed. True or false?
Like me first, you said true.
There's 3 of them so far. They don't work where we work, Alexis. What's your opinion? Is it in the best interest for the laboratory if the LIS team is employed by the laboratory? Yes or no?
This is a bit of a bias one.
It is. I was interested to see some, though, are still owned by the LIS department. And that's it. Thank you so much.